And if everybody could just do me a favor, would you mind just muting yourself, please, so there's no background noise? Thank you so much. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Satori Gibson. If I haven't met you before, it's nice to meet you. I'm sure I'll see you in person at one of the flu clinics, but I'm your Philadelphia Medical Reserve Corps coordinator. Join with me on this call today. At some point, I'll be turfing it off to my colleague, Bethany Harding, to cover the data collection portion of this training for you. But we'll just go straight through. If you have any questions at any point, you're welcome to empty them into the chat function. Otherwise, just hold on to them until the end and we'll have a quick Q&A portion. I'll be able to answer anyone's questions. All right, so here's the agenda for this flu season. So for either the flu clinics, the agenda is basically the same, but for the purpose of this training, I'm just going to go over everything and anything that you would need to know about each of these clinics. And then I'll get a little bit more into your specific job roles and functions a little later on in this training. And you'll also receive an email from me later on this week with any updates pertaining to your specific job roles or functions at either of these clinics. All right, so first we're going to start off with just a simple clinic background, just letting you know why we do this, what's the significance of this training and exercise. This is, if you didn't know, if this is one of your first times doing the flu clinics with us this season, thank you for joining us. But this is a training and exercise for our MRC unit in the instance that we need to rapidly inoculate first responders. But for the purpose of maintaining a healthy relationship with the Philadelphia Police Department, we do vaccinate first responders, anywhere from police, EMS, fire personnel, and also their families are offered the same vaccine at these clinics as well. So it's a great opportunity to kind of meet first responders, serve that need, and then to practice our execution if this were like a real world emergency. All right, and then we're going to go over some clinic objectives. Again, just the purpose of deploying specifically MRC volunteers to support this event, and just to kind of highlight how essential all of you are to this response. And then I'm going to go over just a brief overview of what you can specifically expect to occur at these events as an MRC volunteer. And then I'll hand it off to Bethany, as I mentioned earlier, for her portion of the data collection training. And she'll just kind of go over everything that you'll need to know as a data collector. But this is also really important to know, even if you aren't a data collector, because you will be working closely together at either of these clinics. So it's important to kind of know what all the job functions are so that we can have a smooth and seamless clinic. I'll move more into the clinical training and I'll touch a little bit more on that. But for my clinicians, I believe most of you have done this before in years past. So again, thank you for coming back and doing this again with us. I really do appreciate it. But as all of you know, if you've done this before, Rona will make sure that she goes very in depth with every and anything that she expects from all the clinicians that will be at this clinic or at these clinics. I'm just going to touch lightly on a few things that everyone should probably know before heading into this deployment. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have a wrap up and then just a cute Q&A if you do have, or a quick Q&A if you do have any questions. You can just ask them either, like I said, put them in the chat, or you can just hold on to them until the end and I will answer any questions that you have. All right, so in terms of clinic background, I do apologize. I know that this the screen is a little wordy, but we do have to go over all this information just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. All right, so first responders, as you know, are critical to operations going on in the city, whether it's an emergency response, a natural disaster, anything like that. So again, as I mentioned, this is a training and exercise response for us as an MRC unit to practice if we were to be in response mode and called upon to inoculate first responders rapidly in the instance of an emergency. So this is, again, a great way to maintain a healthy relationship with our first responders in the city of Philadelphia. And it's just a great way to keep us on our toes and keep us active and ready to deploy if and when we were called upon to support an event like this if there were a real world emergency. Historically, first responders demonstrate an increased dedication to response efforts when the safety of family members has been secured. So that's also why, that's the reason why their families and friends are also allowed to come in to these clinics to get vaccinated as well. For any of my first responders on this call, whether you're an ER nurse or an EMT or anything like that, if you work in a high-paced environment, or if you work in a world where, you know, there's a lot happening at once, or if there's a real-world emergency, you know how stressful it can be to not only worry about the patients that you have in your care or the situation that you have in front of you in terms of work, but also the stress of, you know, worrying about your family can definitely play on your response and your performance. So, you know, we've just found that first responders are more likely to get out there, do what needs to be done if they know that their family is secured and safe, which is why we also offer flu vaccines to their families as well. If this were a real world emergency, like I said before, we would also offer the same services in that situation. And then in a public health emergency, you know, this could include a biological or radiological event that the PDPH, the Philadelphia Department of Public Health, that we are responsible and ready to respond to. And we will be responsible and dependent on to provide medical countermeasures for first responders and essential personnel within the city of Philadelphia. So some clinic objectives. So again, this is a training and exercise response to train you, the MRC volunteers, to help support us at PDPH for, you know, some type of rapid vaccination event, or to support a mass vaccination plan or mass casualty event, something like that. Again, this is just all an exercise and to get you guys the skills and the training you need to respond to a real world emergency. The purpose of these two clinics, typically, if you've done this before with us, then you know that we usually do 3 clinics every year. Unfortunately, we will only be doing 2 this year due to there was some conflicts with our 3rd site location. I think they're going under some renovations. So unfortunately that area or that space wasn't available for us to conduct another flu clinic, but we will be doing 2 this year to provide seasonal influenza vaccines to other first responders and essential personnel, to also assess our capabilities for doing this in a drive-through capacity. So the first clinic on October 1st, this upcoming Saturday, will be a walkthrough setting where first responders and their families will walk through a clinic and get vaccinated that way. And that is an exercise for what we call a pod response or point of distribution response. And then the FOP, the Federal Order Police Training Center, will be a drive-through method. So that is to practice our capability to inoculate first responders if they had to be, you know, drive through the clinic, which makes it very efficient, very straightforward, and it's an easy process for rapid vaccination. I say easy, but there are some challenges that that may arise, but this is why we do these clinics as an exercise to, you know, get any of the hiccups out of the way, to make sure that when we practice that we're ready to go if we needed to respond to, again, a real world emergency. And then of course, this is also a great exercise to assess the setup process and estimate the number of staff and time needed for a rapid initiation of a drive-through operation. So what we do for the second clinic at the FOP, the Federal Order of Police, is when we set up this clinic, we have someone on our team who will time how fast we can set up this clinic, how long the clinic will run, and then how fast we can kind of break down and get everything wrapped up. Again, that is just to kind of keep us on our toes and keep us accountable for how rapidly and efficiently we're able to set up a drive-through clinic, also a walk-through clinic, operate that clinic, and then break that clinic down. All right, so some important flu clinic details for you. As I mentioned earlier, the first clinic will be this Saturday on October 1st. The second will be next Wednesday on October 12th. Again, we are serving first responders and their families of 9 years of age or older. That's very important. We're not vaccinating anyone under the age of 9. So it's important for everyone to know, especially data collectors and vaccinators. Work as a team. That's one thing I will say. Make sure that data collectors, you're asking all the questions that are necessary and required of you. And then vaccinators, just make sure you're paying attention when that data collector is interacting with those patients to make sure that they didn't miss anything, or if there's something that you may need to question further or something like that, that's when you would, you know, step in. But we want to make sure that we're following all the guidelines, and this will, we'll go over this again the day of your deployment and make sure that everyone's aware of this. But I do just want to stress on this training that we are not vaccinating anyone under the age of 9 years old. Every year, I laugh at myself because I know every year I struggle with saying this, but I'm going to attempt to say it right this year. Flucelvax quadrivalent is what we will be administering, and the dosage is listed here for you as well. And those will be 0.5 milliliters single dose syringes that we will be providing to you as well. Parking for both locations are ample and free. That's one thing I do love about these clinics, is that because we are working with the Philadelphia Police Department, they provide ample amount of parking for everyone. So there's never a shortage. I always, encourage anyone to carpool or, see if there's an easier way for you to kind of ride to this clinic. But if you want to ride together, or if you have a friend who's also an MRC volunteer who's deploying, please carpool. I feel like it makes everything a little bit easier. But just know that parking is free, and there'll be more than enough for everybody, so there shouldn't be any issues. At the police training center, the building is actually located in the center of the parking lot, essentially. So there's parking all the way around. So you'll be good to go there. At the FOP, the lodge, once you arrive there, you'll see the parking situation. There will be ample space to park. We were told that everything will be secure this year for you guys. But the drive-through will be set up, so there'll be folks out there to direct you to exactly where you can park. But I will be sending out updates again later on this week about everything involved in your deployment, specifically for the days or the clinics that you're deploying to. And then the dress code, casual and comfortable. Everyone must wear closed-toed shoes. I mean, it will be October at that point, so it may be a little bit chilly, but for everyone's safety, we do ask that you wear closed-toed shoes. If you already have an MRC t-shirt, I do ask that you please wear that. If you are clinical or a clinician, you can feel free to wear your scrubs if that's what you would like to do. I just feel like and I find it easier to identify MRC volunteers when they are in uniform. And if you haven't met me yet, I am big on group pictures. So I definitely would love to see if everybody could kind of just wear that MRC t-shirt so you're easily identifiable. And I will also be bringing a bunch of other MRC t-shirts and giveaways and stuff like that with me for both of the clinics. So if you don't have one, I will have one for you on site. I'll have all the different sizes for all of you. But I ask again, if you do have one, please just wear it. I really would appreciate that. But if you are a clinician, I do understand if you would prefer to wear your scrubs. And then again, keep in mind about the closed-toed shoes. For the police training center, the first clinic on October 1st, I believe the weather looks a little bit rainy this year, but the clinic is indoors. So that's, there's nothing to worry about there. The vaccine clinic will be indoors, and also the lunch area will also be indoors. So there shouldn't be any concerns there. But for the FOP, that is a drive-through outdoor clinic. So I want to stress that to everybody. Please dress comfortably. I find that in October, when everyone first arrives there, maybe a little bit chilly, and then it may heat up or warm up, as we go through the clinic throughout the day. So please just dress in layers, bring, a hoodie or, pullover, anything that you think you may need to keep yourself comfortable. Yeah, and it may get a little windy in the FOP because we are sort of under an overhead, like a tunnel almost. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. That one will be indoor, the other will be outdoor, and just to keep in mind, dress comfortably. All right, so here's the flu clinic flow. So essentially for either the flu clinic, whether you're deploying with us I'm sorry, my dog is begging for attention right now. Whether you are deploying for October 1st or October 12th, the flow is essentially the same for either clinic. All volunteers will come in and they will register. After you register, and normally when you deploy, you'll come in, you'll sign in with me. If you are a new volunteer, please make sure to mention that to me, and I'll have you sign a liability and confidentiality waiver, as all MRC volunteers do. And then we'll get you signed in, maybe give you a name tag, something like that, give you your t-shirts, and then send you on your way. After the registration, there will be a just-in-time training where volunteers will meet with their individual teams, to go over their specific roles and expectations as volunteers. This is the time where if you were fuzzy or confused about anything before, to certainly make sure that you ask all those questions in your just-in-time training. That is the time for you to get all the answers that you need from your lead. There will be leads for each individual role that will introduce themselves to you, make themselves available to you. Those will be the folks that you go to if you have any pressing concerns, any issues. I will, of course, be there floating around checking on everybody. So if you see me, if you need me for anything, please, just flag me down. I'll be happy to assist with anything. The potential early start, I did just want to mention this. There's always a potential for an early start. And by early start, I mean, the clinic has set times, right, of operations from this time to this time. However, as we've seen in years prior, lots of people have shown up a lot earlier than anticipated. And so if we do notice that there is a backup or a long line starting to form, we will ask that everyone report to their stations and get started. And there may be a potential early time, but if that happens or occurs, we will be sure to let you know. Just wanted to put that out there and put it on your radar so that you know there may be possibility. I know that this typically happens at the FOP because it's a drive-through. A lot of people, or a lot of cars rather, will start to kind of pile up and clog up the road out there. So we typically flag them through and start the clinic a little bit early for that one, just to kind of keep it going. And I apologize for the dates here for the walkthrough or drive-through. I missed that when I was updating this PowerPoint, but the first clinic, like I mentioned, is Saturday, October 1st. Again, all this information will be sent out to you pertaining to your specific deployments. And the second drive-through clinic will be on Wednesday, October 12th. And then after, the clinic has completed and all operations has ceased, we will then break you down and then dismiss everyone. We do just want to stress, and I do just want to ask all volunteers, please do not break down, start putting away any materials or anything like that until instructed specifically to do so. That means if you see other people packing up or breaking down around you, you are not permitted to do so until either myself or the vaccine manager comes and breaks you down. This is because we break down in sections depending on the clinic flow and how many patients we have left to serve. So you may see a station or two break down. That's fine. Let them do their thing, and then we'll let you know when it's time for you to break down specifically. One thing I do just kind of want to mention before I get ahead of myself and continue with the rest of this training here is that everyone who knows me knows I'm very big on time commitment. So if you commit to any deployment, you are committing to the full shift. All right. We've had issues years past where volunteers have said, yay, I'm excited for this deployment. I'll be available from this time to this time, which is the full deployment duration. And then we get to the actual deployment and they have to leave early or something came up or whatever. If it's a real world emergency or family emergency, I completely understand that if you have to, kind of jet out a minute or two, or if however early. However, because we are running this clinic from starting to finish and there are lots of patients to serve, we want to ensure that consistency and maintain that clinic flow, and we can only do that if everybody commits to the time frame that they initially signed up for. So if you signed up for Saturday, October 1st, that is a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. deployment. If you sign up for October 12th, that is a 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. deployment. If you cannot fulfill that full clinic duration, please contact me as soon as possible and let me know. It is very, very pertinent that everyone is able to be there on time, especially at the beginning of the clinic, and that everyone is able to stay throughout the entirety of the clinic. Again, if you have to leave a few minutes early or something comes up, I completely understand that. If it's unplanned, that is totally, acceptable and understandable. But if you cannot commit to the full time period, we would really probably need to schedule another volunteer, because it just in years past has kind of slowed the clinic flow. So we just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with that. I apologize. I have a 1.5-year-old puppy who just knocked over my trash can. Okay. And for some reason, this did not want to present correctly, but I'll be sending this out regardless through. I'm so sorry. I'll be sending this out through email for your email updates for everybody who needs to know exactly what the organizational chart will look like. It is the same from last year. I just wanted to upload a new picture with the correct year on it, but I will include this in everyone's deployment summary. This is who you will be reporting to. Everybody, essentially all MRC volunteers will report directly to me if you have any immediate concerns or issues. But if you are a clinician, you'll report to Rona, who'll be the clinical lead for that day, or whoever the med lead on site will be. You'll report to them. They'll identify themselves at the beginning of your deployment and in your just-in-time training. And then whoever the data collection lead is, you'll report to them. I believe that'll be Bethany for either one or both of the clinics. and then so on and so forth. But if at any point you have any questions throughout the duration of your deployment, you can always feel free to flag me down and I'll clarify anything that may be confusing to you, or if you just need a confirmation for anything. But again, I will send this org chart out to everybody in your update deployment summary later on in this week. All right, so the walkthrough clinic layout is pretty straightforward. This is actually in the the layout is actually in the direction as if you were walking into the clinic yourself. So when you arrive, you're going to go to the right-hand side where you'll see the registration table, and that's where everybody's going to sign in. All staff who are working at clinic will come in and sign in with me. You know, if you've deployed with me before, you know, I'm very big on name tags. So I will be sure to give everybody identification, get you signed in, get your MRC t-shirt or free giveaways, whatever you need for the day. Everyone will kind of hang out in the lunchroom area or the breakfast and lunchroom area until we give a full just-in-time training to the full clinic staff, and then we'll break you off into your specific teams for your individual just-in-time training, whether that's data collection, your clinical training, or things like that. But after everybody gets registered and settled in the breakfast and lunch area, we'll then move you all into the secondary location, which is that room right next door on the left-hand side of the screen. We'll assign you to different vaccination stations according to, you know, whatever job role that you were given, whether you're a vaccinator, data collector, station assistant. Actually, I believe this for the walkthrough, there are no station assistants, so I misspoke on that, but you will be either a vaccinator or a data collector. And you'll be, you know, kind of assigned to a station. So this is the layout for that. Patients will walk up against this where this yellow line is and that red arrow is pointing. They'll kind of walk and the line will curve around. The line lead and the line staff will direct them to the appropriate open stations, and clinic flow will kind of be maintained that way. And then they'll exit that clinic. You know, if you just follow the red arrows, you can see that they'll exit the clinic in a routine fashion. So that's pretty straightforward. And then just want to highlight the restrooms, everybody. As soon as you enter the building, right before you get to the breakfast and lunch area, there are restrooms on your right-hand side for everybody to use, just for your awareness. Okay. And if this is a secure location again, so if you need to store anything, there'll be PD personnel. This is also a police training center, so your stuff will be secure. You can either leave your belongings in the breakfast and lunch area, or you can sit them behind your station in the vaccine clinic area. I just want to stress that we try to keep all the walkways clear for both patient and staff safety. And we avoid putting anything, any personal items, any drinks, food, anything on the vaccination tables or at the vaccination station. So all food and drink must stay in the breakfast and lunch area. But if you want to bring your purse or your bag or your briefcase, whatever you need, into the vaccination area with you, you can. But either way, all of your belongings will be secure on site. All right, so this is the layout for the drive-through. As you can see, there'll be cars on either side. There will actually be, I believe, 2 or 3 stations, floating stations in the middle as well, to kind of help maintain that steady clinic flow. Every position is essentially marked on here. You can see that in the legend, from the safety zones to the data collectors to the station assistants to the vaccinators, to the floating teams in the middle. This is a very chaotic clinic in terms of setup. There's a lot of different moving parts that kind of have to be put together with this. So one thing I do just want to stress about this drive-through, if you've done this in years past, then you know there will be someone walking around with like a sort of a megaphone. We have a safety officer. They just want to make sure everyone is safe and nobody gets hit with the car. There will be folks that will direct the cars to stop, put their car in park, and then turn off their engines. And that is just to ensure everyone's safety again. And nobody is to move in between cars while cars are moving through the stations or through the little tunnel. That's pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to stress that again. We just really want to stress safety for everybody and ensure that everyone, you know, is aware of their surroundings. This is one of those clinics where you have to be on your toes because there's a lot, like I said, a lot of different moving parts. So I just want to stress safety here. But there will also be line staff out there and safety officers to ensure a seamless clinic flow. The fun thing about the drive-through clinic is that a lot of people bring their dogs and there'd be like cute little kids in the back. And it's a really good, fun experience. We try to make this a fun day for everybody. And you know, they like to take pictures with us, and they like to just, you know, I don't know. It's a fun day. There's never a dull moment. I will say that. And we just try to ensure that both patients and staff have a great day and a great experience regardless. Another thing I will stress about the drive-through, and this also pertains to the walkthrough as well, but specifically for the drive-through, at no point is anybody supposed to be on their cell phones, because this is an active site, because cars are pulling in and out, for the high concern of safety here. No AirPods in your ears, no phones should be, you know, you shouldn't be on your phone like that. If you are on break, that's completely fine. But while you are actively at the clinic, whether you are a vaccinator, or station assistant or a data collector, or anybody actually in any of these roles, you are not to have out your phone and actively, you know, be on TikTok or Twitter or texting while this clinic is operating. And we'll remind everyone again of this the day of the clinic, but I do just want to stress that again, just to ensure everyone's safety. All this is about safety and making sure everyone is comfortable and aware of their surroundings. All right, so the vaccination station table layout is as follows. This is just a quick snippet of what you'll kind of expect to see. So there'll be, of course, a trash station or trash bag for you to dispose into. There will be a biohazard container there, sharps container, or biohazard bag, I'm sorry, and a sharps container. You'll have ample supplies of hand sanitizer and all the other things that are listed on here. Please keep in mind that if you run out of anything, we do have supply runners constantly going around checking on you, making sure that you have every and anything that you may need to operate. If at any point, if you run out of anything, or if you realize that you're running low on anything, please just flag someone down. We'll bring anything that you need. There will be a red and green laminated card on your table for that exact purpose, whether it's for data collection help or for any supplies that need to be replenished. We will bring those to you. All right, safety precautions for the drive-through clinic. Again, I kind of went over all this, but all vehicles will be completely shut off. Data collectors cannot start the process of screening for any car that's not currently turned off, completely idle. Please do not leave your assigned workstations without notifying the pod manager or safety manager. Car traffic must be stopped and slowed before staff can move to work on the patients. Staff should also take extra precautions when moving among vehicles. And these are all things that I kind of went over before, but just want to stress again. Infection control. If you've deployed with us before, then you know we still mask. It is a clinical setting, so we do ask that everybody either show up with the mask or we will give you one. Whether you're operating in an indoor clinic or an outdoor clinic, you will still be asked to wear a mask, and that's to keep everyone safe, to keep you safe, to keep us safe, and to keep the patient safe as well. I mentioned this earlier, but eating and drinking will only be done in the designated areas away from the vaccination area. That means, again, no drinks, no coffee, no water, no food, anything like that on the vaccination station. The chucks area is meant to be completely sterile, so avoid even putting your phone on the table. Please put your phone in your pockets or in your bags. It shouldn't be out anyways, but we just want to keep those areas sterile. Hand hygiene must be completed between every vaccination, and especially before eating and going to the after going to the restroom. For vaccinators, gloves are for vaccinators, gloves are required, but not gloves are not required, but they will be provided. You are able to glove if you would wish to, but you can also just, if you don't want to glove, you don't have to, and you can just wash your hands in between patients.
Great. I'm going to go through the data collection training now. I'll just give you a heads up, Tori, when you can head to the next slide. So if you can go ahead and go to the next slide, I'll get started. So the processes at the two clinics, the walkthrough and the drive-through, are going to be using different systems. So as I go through this, I will be indicating where the differences lie between them and kind of where the similarities are. So as Satori mentioned, there will be the data collection supervisor on site. That will be me at both clinics, and you will be working with a vaccinator, and in the case of the drive-through, a station assistant as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise that blue card, catch my attention, and I'll be happy to come help. So for the walkthrough clinic, we'll be using a system of ID scanners with an access database. So this basically means that you'll be scanning an ID, and then that information will pop up, and there will be a few fields that you need to fill in addition to that. And for the drive-through clinic, we'll be using a database. So you'll be basically looking up a patient in a database and finding their record. So there's some specific things for each of those. Can you go to the next slide? So like I mentioned, for the walkthrough clinic, there will be ID scanners. So there will be kind of three cases. It will either be an adult with their own ID, which you will scan and then fill in additional fields such as phone number, their affiliation, and then the vaccine information is which arm they're getting vaccinated in and who administered the vaccination. So that is the name of the vaccinator that is at your station. So that's one class is adult with their own ID. There'll be minors where you will scan the ID of the parent, and then there will be three fields that you'll need, well, at least three fields you'll need to change. The first name, if the last name is the same, date of birth, gender, and potentially you'll need to change last name as well, or address. So just be cognizant of that and make sure that you're asking the patients what the accurate information is and double checking that before you submit the information. And finally, there may be a case where they don't have an ID, and whether parent or child, and in that case, you'll enter the information manually. For the drive-through clinic, you'll be looking up the patients in the database. If you've done this before with us, we switched up a little bit this year, so you'll actually be looking it up by date of birth first. So I'll go into that. And again, if they don't come up in the database, if you can't find them, you will be able to enter the data manually. For both of these, it's really important that each patient has their own record and you fill out a form for each patient. So whether, however many family members there are, please make sure that you're filling one out for each patient. Next slide. So when a person, a family, a car approaches your station, you're going to do a few screening steps. So first, if there are any children in the group, you will ask if there's anyone under 9 years of age. As Satori mentioned, we are not vaccinating anyone who is under 9. So that's going to be the first question. And then you will ask each person if they have ever had a bad reaction to a vaccine. And if the answer is yes, no matter what it is, just hold up the red card. That will call the lead clinician over, and they'll be able to go over with the patient what, the details about the reaction and determine whether they're able to receive the vaccine. So when you're doing this process, please make sure to ask that screening question before you scan an ID, before you, look up information, and make sure that the patient is able to be vaccinated before you start entering in information. We especially don't want to enter in any records for people who didn't actually get vaccinated. So if at any point in the process, either they choose not to get vaccinated or something comes up, just make sure that you are, hitting escape and going back. We'll go over some of those details more in person, but just make sure that you're only entering records for those who are getting vaccinated. So once you are clear to proceed, then you can swipe the ID, you can enter in the date of birth and proceed with the process. Next slide. So for the walkthrough, like I said, you're going to scan the ID, you're going to double check and make sure that that data is accurate. And you're going to be entering in, like I said, the phone number, the affiliation, which is probably mostly going to be LEHB member, which is like the family members and people affiliated with the first responders. If they are actually actively on duty, that is an option as well. And there's also an option for other staff members, whether they're or volunteers to get vaccinated. So you're going to enter that information, including the site of admin, like right or left arm, and who vaccinated, and then hit create new record. For the drive-through, again, you're going to search by the date of birth. There's a specific format, so it's going to be like a, 04 for April, 01, 1994, for example. That will be laid out for you on the day of. We'll have written instructions, so you can reference that. This will help us to search for people and hopefully not encounter as many difficulties with like misspelled names or duplicate names, things like that. If you've worked at our clinics, sometimes it's just a little bit funky working with a database and having a lot of information. Not all of it is completely accurate. So we'll start with that. And then, if there are multiple records, you can start typing in the last name as well, and it will pull up the record. So again, you'll double check the information. Sometimes the addresses in the database haven't been updated, etc. So just confirm that all of that is accurate, and then put in the vaccine administration data and submit that and start a new form. And if in some case the tech goes down, knock on wood that does not happen, we do have paper vaccine administration records in order to take down that information.
Bethany, I'm so sorry. I'm going to cut you off for 1 second. I apologize. For some reason, whatever plan we have for Zoom cuts it off after 45 minutes and not the hour and 15 that I initially scheduled for. So what I'm going to do for everyone's awareness, I'm going to drop another link in the chat. So when and if this automatically cuts off, you can just click on that link. If you don't mind, I apologize for the technical difficulties. You can just click on that link and we'll pick right back up where we started. I'm going to drop that in the chat now before, for some reason, this cancels on me. I apologize for this. I feel like every year it's something new. But I did not know that we were